Thank you for coming. We have a full agenda today. We're going to be hearing from members of our Student Leadership Board. We're going to be going over the I Wish My Parents new campaign. And then we're going to be going over Master Schedule Survey for parents. So we'll go over a number of different events that we have coming up. And I really want to thank you for being here. So let me introduce our members of our Student Leadership Board who are here. I wanted to get them in sort of as a way to sort of recognize our response to the anti-Semitic posts that were made going back to the end of January between the Rye and Byron Hills basketball teams. There was some posts that were put up there on an Instagram account. And it got to the point where some unknown person put an anti-Semitic comment up there. Very offensive. Obviously, from the community standpoint, we were very saddened to hear this. We were angry, obviously, but we wanted to make sure that our response was appropriate. So we took steps to reach out to law enforcement. We were working with Rye, who was very cooperative in the whole sort of investigation. We reached out to the district attorney's office, and ultimately we were in touch with the Anti-Defamation League. Anti-Defamation League did a great job sort of coming in to work with us to try to understand what the situation was and how to best help us support our community going forward. One of the things that they offered was to have members of the ADL come in to speak with members of our Student Leadership Board. And the Student Leadership Board, they are a perfect group of kids to sort of receive this training. And I am here to welcome them, not only to talk about that specific occurrence, but to also talk about what they are doing on their committee, on their membership, and what they are all about. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome first Mr. Torres, who is the advisor for the Student Leadership Board. But we have three wonderful students with us here today: Dylan Starker, Catalina Pedraza, and Zachary Daniel. So welcome.
Good morning. So I'm Ruben Torres, I'm the advisor of the Student Leadership Board. But and so we've been working with these three students. Dylan is a senior, so 4 years now, about 4 years. One of the things that we do in these sessions is just look at the whole framework of cultural proficiency, which they're going to speak to you about today. So they're going to share with you some of the work that we do. Thank you.
Okay, so the Student Leadership Board, the members of it, we meet a few times a year in the district office with some faculty, and we meet for a few hours a day, and we really focus on discussing cultural issues within and surrounding our community, with the goal of just expanding our mindsets and perspectives on these issues. And what we're really trying to do is establish what we call cultural proficient mindsets, which we'll talk about what that means in a minute. And then the next step for us is to bring these intellectual discussions that we have at the district office back to the high school, so that every student in the high school can have awareness of not only the issues that we're talking about, but also how to respond appropriately to the issues. So the main role we play is really just establishing a school climate built on mutual respect.
Yeah, so the way a student would become a member of the Student Leadership Board, at least for all of us, the way we experienced it was that a sophomore, a group of two sophomores would, boy and girl, would visit the mentor class that they had the year prior, and then they would give a presentation discussing a video in which a student in a high school in Maryland made some, he was involved in a video where he made some pretty awful and racist comments, and then it was a discussion with the class of how you would respond, how the school should respond, and what the role of the school is in an issue like this. And then based on that discussion, we would pick leaders for the Student Leadership Board of that year, and they would come to the district office and do a review every year. That has since been changed to a more holistic approach, where instead Mr. Torres will work with mentor classes and even 8th graders and 7th graders in middle school, just, I guess, kind of scouting out and seeing who would be best fit, I guess, for this role, and trying to deliver any sort of information that we come across and discover the district office and then bring it back to the greater population of high school?
When we actually congregate as a student leadership board, we're either in our respective years or we're kind of like in a mixture of freshman through senior classes. And obviously we're talking a little bit about public proficiency, which basically just dictates the manner in which we should regard other more diverse people, other types of people, and how we can appreciate and respect their own cultures. Excuse me. Basically, in SLB, we have a lot of facilitators come in. As Mr. Torres mentioned, with the Anti-Defamation League, we have professionals come in and help us actually train to more properly, I guess, address these issues of diversity in our community. Our main goal is to make our students a lot more culturally proficient to succeed in more diverse environments, because the world is becoming even more diverse and we need to be able to properly communicate these interpersonal respects to other people. And especially in situations like these with the anti-Semitic comments that were made in the basketball game, we need to be able to properly address them as a community and as a school population.
So just in terms of an area of growth for us, over the summer I read this book called Factfulness for a class that I'm taking this year, and it discussed 10 misleading instincts that humans have. So for example, we have the negativity instinct, a generalization instinct. The main instinct that I kind of saw relating to what happened with the Rye basketball comments made is called the blame instinct. So us as humans, we have a tendency to point fingers and kind of find a culprit and say like, oh, who did this? And so with the comments that were made on social media, we were super concerned about who did it. And while it is important that, you know, sometimes to find out who did it, sometimes we have to shift our focus from putting all our energy into finding out who posted that comment to just changing everyone's mindsets and making everyone aware that it's obviously not okay in any environment to make a comment like that. So, yeah.
So I guess what we're working towards is not only to address things that are offensive or that might be a little bit more sensitive to other people, but exactly why they are sensitive and offensive. We want to be able to not just avoid these kinds of behaviors, but actually understand why we should avoid them, and hopefully that will deepen our understanding as a diverse world.
Yeah, I think that's a super important point that Caroline brings up, is that we should be looking at people who say things like this and trying to blame them, yell at them, but I think it's more important to just understand people's perspectives and where they come from, and then with that we can try to work to change how they view the world and kind of just understand our views and their views, so we can kind of, I guess, not really reach a middle, but just bring understanding to both parties about the differences in the way you brought up and the way that you view things.
Yeah, like instead of just blaming people, if we actually look towards the roots of problems and the causes and then try to reverse those causes, then problems would be solved a lot more.
So by having these discussions as an SLB, our hope is that we'll be able to diffuse this sort of mindset into the rest of the school population, so that it's not only the members of the SLB that have this sort of training experience, but all of environments.
When I was up with the SLB and we were doing training, we were working on something called voice circles. Can you speak to what they are and how we use them as a community?
Yeah, so a voice circle is where basically you will have like a group of people. We've done it a bunch of times. A good one that I remember was with the 8th grade SAIL, which is their kind of version of this. And what we have is that you basically sit in a circle with one another, and then obviously looking at everyone, and you kind of go around the circle just discussing certain issues, and also like trying to share as much as you can. So like for at least SLB, we have something called like the norms of like operations. So the norms are like you leave positions at the door, what's said in the room stays in the room, and there's other ways to just ensure that people feel as comfortable as possible sharing what they feel. And so then within that circle, you share just your thoughts and your feelings on the issue, and personal anecdotes you might have, and then you discuss as a group.
Yeah, and like Zach said, so all positions left at the door. So we'll invite teachers to this, and the teachers tell us to be calling them by their first names, which at first is obviously awkward to us. But it's really just to ensure that the teacher doesn't automatically have this higher voice and higher opinion than us students just because of their position.
What I think is also really important about this voice circle is that, or these voice circles, is that we are given an environment in which we can be vulnerable and talk about our opinions and thoughts and any issues in our community without being, judged. Exactly. So we get insight from obviously the student population, but also the faculty, which I think is very important because we're not just building perspectives within our own generation, but across many.
So the most recent training that you had was when the Anti-Defamation League came in. Can you speak to some of the things that they spoke about, anything that's not confidential? What was the training like when they came in for you?
Yeah, so we started out by drawing this iceberg on the board because, like humans, icebergs, like they're only like their top is showing, and then the rest is under the surface. So we kind of put different characteristics that fall above the water level or ice, and then below, to kind of say that like such as sometimes your race is on the borderline. You can't just tell. You can't assume someone's gender just like from the top of the surface. So that's how we started off our discussion.
Yeah, I think an important point of that was also that despite what you may be able to do from surface level, humans just have the tendency to make assumptions based on what we see automatically, and I think a big part of it that we discussed was that it's important to not necessarily fully reject any assumption you make, but to kind of put them aside for a second and then begin to speak with this person and understand where they come from and what their life is like before you can apply any other assumptions to them. So it's important not to just basically, I guess, close the book on an issue or close the book on a person just by their looks. It's more important to know them on a deeper personal level.
I think another important takeaway from this discussion with the Anti-Defamation League was that, there's a certain natural progression from microaggression to, eventual hate crimes and things like that. So they will continue to, exacerbate in size. And the only way that we can hopefully control them is to control our language from the very beginning. Obviously, if it's a pyramid, we need to make sure that you have the bottom, the largest part of the pyramid in control. So that's changing the way we actually speak to each other, making sure that the language that we normalize and the language that we use to make jokes isn't necessarily offensive, and to someone that might not be as understanding will not be taken and used in different, more inappropriate settings.
So, difficult question, but maybe one that you feel comfortable with. In working with the SLB, is there anything here in the community, any areas of concern that sort of raised to a higher level about the way that we're treating certain groups or anybody?
Yeah, definitely. I think, despite the fact that our school, I would say, is fairly visibly tolerant in the sense that, like, if you look at the student population and you ask them, how do you feel about these issues, you'll probably get a lot of, like, I guess, good answers on what they view. I think it's important to keep in mind, though, that sometimes, like, I don't know, this is just from a student perspective, is that, like, your actual experience within the high school, walking down the hallway, like, people interacting with their friends can be very different than what it seems. So, like, at times, like, I know we have all, like, personally heard stuff in the hallway that, like, makes us kind of cringe, or just bad stuff. Especially comments that are usually very homophobic or at times Islamophobic. Those are the two ones I notice the most. So I think those are two issues that I think our school needs to broaden our perspective on, just because I think we have a lack of diversity in our actual population when it comes to views, opinions, and perspectives of all kinds. So I think it's important that we broaden our perspective just to understand those people more before we all end up falling victim to the quick judgments we make about those groups.
I think we should also note that another problem is that a lot of these things go unspoken. So even though we do hear offensive things said in the hallways, or we do hear things that might not be, appropriate for the situation, nobody really says anything. It's kind of taken for granted that, it was said in the hallway or was said wherever, and it's kind of their problem, not mine. And I think that's a mentality that we need to change in Byron Hills. We kind of need to enact this way of thinking that, if someone should say something, it should be me, because I'm not sure if anybody else will say anything. And, these offensive comments can really go a long way and can really hurt people.
Also, speaking of just making assumptions, something that we talk a lot about at SLB is the ladder of inference. So this is this theoretical sequence of steps that kind of explains how people think, but how we should kind of change that a little bit. So first, we're just going about life and we're observing our surroundings, and then we collect this data, and from that data we input our own beliefs into it, which creates some bias, and then we make assumptions, which leads us to make conclusions that may not be true. So it would be great if everyone could add one more rung to their ladder called adjustments, so that we could go back, adjust those initial assumptions that we make, so that our conclusions can be a little more mindful.
One question, how many members are there in the SLB total?
About 18-ish per grade. I think my grade has 18, because there were 9 mentor classes for my grade, and a boy and a girl were chosen from each.
And when are the freshmen invited to attend?
Early. Yeah.
Usually
So-
October, November.
Yeah, so very early in their freshman year, they're already being immersed in this environment in which we talk about these things, which is great.
And this year's freshman group is larger than the other groups we've had. Again, we've been trying to move away from just the 2 student per mentor model. So I actually have right now 25 in the freshman group.
They're just so impressive, and the work that they do up there really is very eye-opening. And it's great that we're doing it here in the community. It's great that we have students who are so invested in it, and it makes me feel confident when I know that students like that are amongst our kids. And hopefully we continue this the progress towards cultural proficiency through the SLB. So moving on to our next agenda item, working with Challenge Success for the last year and a half, it's been really eye-opening for us in a lot of ways. Now, one of the things that we did, one of the sort of things that our Challenge Success Steering Committee wanted to do was what we call the I Wish campaign. So this started back in December, and what we wanted to do was to just actually hear our students' voices. And we heard from Denise Pope, we heard from John Kleiman, everybody hears from me. They hear from other administrators talking about the Challenge Success work, but we really just wanted to hear the voices of our students. And we went out and did an I Wish campaign. So the first thing that we did was we asked the kids anonymously to submit to the prompt, I wish my teachers knew, ... And we got a lot of great things from the students. Anywhere from, I wish my teachers knew how great they were, to how much work they give me, how stressed out they make me, and it was really very eye-opening. I was able to send that out to the faculty and to give it to them. We also asked the students to finish the prompt, I wish my parents knew. And all of those I am going to show for you today. It is hard to sit through. It is going to be emotional, and I apologize in advance. We had over 130 submissions to the I Wish campaign. And so we're you figure about 790 students here. figure out the percentages. So these were students that felt enough that they wanted to put it out there. So we did it through just paper boxes. They could submit it through there. They could submit it through a Google form, or they could submit it through a Padlet. Now, I went back and forth with my colleagues and PTSA, with the Challenge Success Parent Committee, just wondering whether I should edit them at all, whether I should change them, whether I should pull some out because they're repetitive. And ultimately, I was just driving home one day on 684, and I did not feel comfortable leaving any of them out. So I know that we are going to be, when kids see this, if they did not see that their comment was in there, then we sort of lose all legitimacy. So it was important for me to include everything that was out there, typos and all. I didn't change them, so you don't have to ask about my ability to edit. So this is coming directly from the kids.
Right. Who's teaching?
Now,
who's in charge of our kids here? You can't even edit.
After seeing this, I think we're all going to be left with what now? Well, obviously we're taking many, many steps in this process. I think that we all needed to sort of gain a consensus about what the overall student experience is here before we started to take some of those deeper dives into looking at things that will actually change our culture here. And I'll get into that afterwards. But sit back, I'll turn the lights off. I have to get some tissues. And we'll hopefully, we'll take questions when it's done. So obviously, taken all together, there are certain themes that come out, and this was, no prompting on our part other than asking them to finish that question, right? So the now what is, in working through all of these things, we go back again to that space template. So student schedule and use of time, performance and problem-based learning, authentic assessments, culture of care, climate of care, and then education. So the one that I really want to sort of focus in on, because I think it'll have the biggest impact without anybody pointing fingers at each other, saying that it's the teacher's fault, that it's the parents' fault, that it's the administration's fault, society's fault. I think the biggest thing that we can do here for our community and for the school is to really take a deep dive and look at our master schedule. The master schedule obviously is such a huge part of what we are all about here. It really drives a lot of the curriculum that we can offer. It drives a lot of the programs, and it really is sort of the heartbeat of our school. So I put this up there just because I thought it was fun. This is actually the first ever schedule for Byram Hills High School that came out in 1966. So if you look at it, they had these things called modules, and each of them were 20 minutes in length. They had a 46-minute lunch. They had a 12-minute homeroom at the beginning of the day, and their school day was actually started at 8 o'clock and went to 3:15. So it was longer school day, is 7 hours and 15 minutes by over a half hour compared to what we have. I know thinking back, we like to think like, oh, back then they started earlier because they needed to get out to either go to their jobs or to, whatever was the case. This was really stunning to me that it ended that late, really surprising. So they had 3 different lunch periods, and each kid would be assigned in one of those lunch periods. And they worked the different modules. Sometimes they would put 2 modules together, and that was like the normal class period. So it was like a 40-minute. Other times they would have a 20-minute module, where they would have like an advisory, or they could meet with teachers for office hours. But it was just really interesting to sort of look at that there. Now, they had the opportunity to just start from scratch with any master schedule that they wanted. And at the time, this was sort of cutting edge, and this is what they said. You want it to be really comprehensive. You want to make sure that students have opportunities to get a taste of everything. Remember, back in the late 60s, what really education was about there was preparing those people to immediately enter the workforce. It was still slightly less than the majority going off to college at that time. So a lot of those courses that were offered could be offered in this model. Obviously, I put this up here just as a contrast. So this is our master schedule. This is what drives us. And we have to ask the question, does this have anything to do with what we just saw coming from the students and what they wanted us to know? And on my meeting with Denise Pope, and in being able to go out with the committee to the Challenge Success Fall Conference, and in working with a number of different schools in the area, I believe that our master schedule has sort of exceeded its usable life. And I would like to begin the process of sort of unpacking it and then looking at other models to see if we could do a better job, if any of the things that are out there would help us sort of still promote the excellence in academics that we have by limiting some of the stress that our students are facing. So there's a lot of trends in scheduling that are out there. We want to be very thoughtful with this. We have posted with the teachers that we are going to start a steering committee around the master schedule. We are going to sort of take surveys from teachers, students, parents, and other stakeholders to see what is important about a master schedule to have. Now, obviously, in changing this, So at some point, they went from the first master schedule to this master schedule. And there were benefits to doing that, and then there were trade-offs. And in anything that we do, we have to balance the benefits and the trade-offs to make sure that the benefits outweigh those. Because we don't and we won't obviously tolerate a lack of or a diminishing of our academic rigor here at the high school. Now, one of the things that we talk about is, well, does rigor mean constantly busy throughout the school day? Does it mean that the kids are on all the time? And all of the data suggests that no, it does not mean that at all, and we need to maybe reframe what we believe rigor to be. So the process is underway, and one of the things that I'm going to ask the parents to do, and I'm going to send it out, is to just take a survey. And a lot of those things that we are thinking about to survey, and it's basically just whether you agree, disagree, or if you're passionate like me, strongly disagree or strongly agree. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to then take that to the scheduling committee and you know, and look at it all together. But I think it's important for people to know, starting out, that as I sort of take us through this, where I stand on it. I didn't want people to think that, oh, we're just going to look into it and we may change it or we may not change it. My strong request will be that we need to move off of this, and all of the data that I've been reading and all of the literature from my perspective seems to be leaning towards moving to a block type of schedule. Okay, so I'm going to be sending this out, but this is the link for the master schedule survey to parents. And I'll show you this what it looks like. All right, so we asked a number of these different questions. Hopefully, I'll just go through them. We're looking to see if this current schedule supports academic performance and achievement. We're going to ask if it supports facilitates a campus climate that encourages student well-being. Learning needs of all high school students. We don't want to, just we don't want to focus on one particular group of students. Access to the courses that they need for graduation. So we want to make sure that they have the ability to do that. We want to make sure that we are preparing them for college and entry-level work. So does this master schedule allow for that? This one, I think I know what the answer will be, but provide students access to the teachers during the school day, so not before school or after school. Ample time for students to have lunch. That's an easy one. Instructional time that supports comprehension of the course material. So this would be about, do they have enough time in class to really develop their sense of what the material is about, or is it too quickly? Is 49 minutes not enough? Maximize access to support services for students. So those things like guidance counselors, student assistance counselors, people that could help them outside of the their curricular needs. Pursue elective courses that interest them. So do they have the ability to do that with this schedule? Does this master schedule allow them to pursue after-school clubs and activities or athletics? Does this promote that? Limit the amount of work students need to complete outside of the classroom, so sort of getting towards homework. Does it support soft skill and non-academic? Soft skill and non-academics. I'll send it out. So those, speaking about homeroom or advisory, those are the things where soft skills can be developed. Right now, we really don't have the ability. We had, when the situation, the anti-Semitic situation occurred, that would have been a perfect opportunity if we had had an advisory for us, for our students to convene and to work through these issues in those smaller, more protective learning groups. I also, so I'll be sending that out. Please take your time. getting that out. Probably in the next month or so will be the deadline. I'll send it out again. But any of your input would be very helpful, and I really appreciate it. Any questions on it? Sorry about that. I just wanted to show I left here the flyer for the Yak Club is promoting the Community for a Cure. So this is going to be taking place Wednesday, March 27th at 7 p.m. And they're bringing in a number of different speakers from Memorial Sloan Kettering, Gilda's Club, and the Les Garden Foundation. It's going to be an evening of cancer education. And so hopefully to answer questions, to promote it, and to really get the messages out there. So the proceeds will go to Yak, who will then use those proceeds to fund their club and to promote other organizations that are battling cancer. Just a terrific club, great organization, and great teachers. We have Mr. Horowitz and Mr. Hubbs who are running it, and they do a great job with the kids. So that's March 27th at 7 p.m. This Thursday we have our first ever game night, and game night is a combination of Tri-M and Student Serving Soldiers. And if anybody's ever seen Minute to Win It, those are going to be the types of games that go on at game night. And there's going to be different musical performances during the changing of the games. So it is a homework-free night, and Friday is an assessment-free day. So we're really encouraging students to come out and enjoy the. If we didn't make it a homework-free night, they would not have come. It's very sad to me. Other than that, the rest of the slides will be put up on Bobcat TV. But thank you for being here, and I can't believe we're at spring already. Here we are.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you, everybody.